Hi Flosstube, it's Helen D. I am back with another tutorial. This is unplanned. I was getting ready to do some finishing and my husband and son just went on a bike ride to play Pokemon Go. So I am home alone. We'll see how this goes. I had most of my things out and ready so we can just get started. So what I'm doing today is, this is how I do one of my flat finishes. I like to mount the flat finish on some fabric with a piece of trim in between. This is a Frosted Pumpkin Seasonal Sayings. I've been doing all of my seasonal sayings the same with a washer on the back because I've been finishing them on this wood block. They sell these at Walmart and they sell them at Joann's. And they just pop right on there and they stand up on their own because they're a couple inches thick. And then I can swap them out with the different seasons. So that's what we're doing today. I actually have another finish if we have time. It will look the same. I'm just finishing on a different background. So what I did first, I only cleaned this side of the desk, so it's a mess on that side. First, I measured my piece. This is the one we'll be doing, Summer Nights and Bonfire Lights. I measured it and figured out the dimensions. I needed to cut it, my ruler. It's 3.5 by 4. I like to cut mine so that I have about 1/4 of an inch of the Ada showing on each side. So I cut a piece of board, sticky board, 4 by 4.5. It's right here. And then for the outside, I usually do about 1/2 inch more on each side. So I cut it 5 by 5.5. Sorry, I have allergies at this time of year. But I did bring up some water. I have been asked what I use to cut my sticky board. I will cut it with an exacto knife. I will cut it with scissors. It will cut that way. It's not that thick. I happen to have this bad boy. This is, it's from Fiskars. You guys can't see that at all. I can put a link to this down below. This is not cheap. Mine was cheap. That's the only reason I have it. We have a salvage warehouse in town. I think these retail for like $100. Last I checked. I'll post, like I said, I'll post a link. I got mine for $17. So that's the only reason I have one of these. It's for scrapbooking. It actually folds open if you want it, or you can put it shut, which is how I usually use it. It fits 12 by 12, so that's a little annoying because if you have anything over 12 inches, it doesn't fit. The ones where you just chunk down the lever, I think you're a little more, there's more options onto what can go in there. Like if you had a long piece, you're only using the end, you'd be fine. I am limited to 12 by 12, but here's how it works. I had another piece for the other one that I left a couple cuts on. I thought I left 2 cuts on it. I only see 1. We'll do the 1 cut. So I measured how wide I needed it, and then I set it in here, and you can line it up. There's like a silver line, and you line it up, and then the blade is over here, and you just kind of hold it down, and it pops it right off. And then you bring your blade back down, and there's a lock, and you have a nice clean cut. Is it awesome? Yes, it is. Is it worth $100? That's up to you. It was definitely worth $17. So that's how I do my cutting. If I can fit it. If it's too big, like this piece, I had a bigger piece. I had to make the first couple cuts by hand, and then I was able to cut it down. So these will be for the second one. So I've ironed this, that's all I've done to it. I found a piece of backing fabric. I'm going to move you back a little bit. I ironed this, though not very well. I can still see a wrinkle in it. So I might go, maybe I cut off the wrong side. No, I'm just a poor ironer. I'm gonna go just run this back down through. It's in the back, so you really wouldn't notice it anyway. It's still there. Big deal. It'll be fine. So I have my two boards. The small one will be for this one, and then this background one is for the fabric. I'll show you on the fabric first, just so you can see it kind of easy. So flip it over to the back side. This is sticky board, so it has the sticky side. If you didn't have a sticky board, the cat's desperately trying to get in the window. You could use the stitchery tape, the double-sided acid-free tape. I've bought this from 123. I've bought it from Amazon. Fat Quarter Shop now sells it. Your LNS might sell it. It's put out by Yarn Tree, so you could use that. You could use glue. You could use the spray sticky stuff. Whatever you are more comfortable with. So I cut my fabric just a little bit bigger. I actually didn't cut it quite big enough, so we'll have to just deal with it, because it really should be a little wider than this, but it will be fine. I'm going to cut off, because I don't need that much excess on that end. And then I'm going to pull the sticky off and just slap it on there. We'll see if I have any better luck than this than I do the stitchery tape. There we go. Just put it on the back of your fabric. Press it down. And then see that wrinkle came right out when I pressed it down. I have my hot glue gun heating up with an extra glue, which is clear so I couldn't see it. So I just put a little glue. Again, I use hot glue. You could use stitchery tape. You could use Aleene's Tacky Glue. Use what you're comfortable with. So I'm just going to put a little bit in one of the corners and then fold it up like you would a present. So you kind of get that triangle look. And I do all 4 corners at once. Then you do it like you would a present. I usually pick opposite sides. I'll run a line of glue and fold it up. I don't bother to put any kind of batting or anything on my fabric side. I will put it on my stitched side, so I'll show you that. And I pull it decently tight so that it stays up there. And then I do the short sides. Maybe don't make your sides so short. It would be easier for you. But it's no big deal. You just have to be careful. Okay, once that's all on there, I might go through and just glue some of my bigger flaps down, just to keep them out of the way. So that's my background. Now, I do have a tip for getting the corners a little tight, which I'll show you on the stitch piece once we get to that. So I set that one aside, and then I'll pull out my stitched piece. So again, here's my sticky. Usually what I do, and you won't be able to see this quite as well from the camera angle, I put it behind it and I hold it up to the window and to a light so that you can see through it. just to make sure it's going to fit and it's going to have enough room. I don't know if you can see the light coming through it. This piece is a fine size. So I will trim off some of the extra of this. And get the cat whisker off it. So I'm gonna put this, like, I don't think I really need to trim up too much, although I will trim off the selvage, the stitch they put in to keep it from fraying everywhere that now I can't think of what it's called. So you could do this by hand. I have the stuff, so I'm gonna use the stuff. I just use my rotary cutter. I might trim off these bits just so they don't fray everywhere while I'm working with it. They don't have to be perfectly even. I'm just gonna do like a little bit on the side. There, just enough so I have less fabric to work with. So I am going to use batting on this. I've used Warm and Natural today because I was in this room and this is what I have. This is a piece of fusible fleece, I think, fusible fleece. It's just batting. I'm just gonna put this on there. This I will end up cutting right to size, so you don't need extra. So once I have that, I'll flip it. I usually put the sticky on the bumpy side if I'm using a fusible fleece. On the glue side, pull my backing off. Stick it right down on there. And then again, you could do this with scissors. I'm going to take my rotary cutter and my quilting ruler and just line it up with the edge and cut the excess right off. I like to have my batting, I can't tell where you guys are. There you are. I like to have it flush with the sticky board. Foam core I think would be a little too thick for this. Matte board would be fine. I've found some other acid-free board at Joann's before. That's like a poster boardish type stuff, but it's thick. That would be fine. I just happen to have sticky board, and right now I'm not leaving the house as much, so I'm using what I have. So here is my cat-haired, my piece of board with the batting on it. I take my sticky piece, my stitched piece, flip it upside down, and again I'm going to set this on there, and I kind of hold it up to the sun to get it where I think it's even. And then sometimes I kind of fold the edges over so you can see, like, I'd like it to come that way a little bit. Having the batting on the back also gives you a little leeway, because you can fiddle with it a little once it's on there. Okay, so I think I have it where I want it. I flip it over. This is a little easier on Ada than linen because it's easier to see, for me, the holes. I kind of eyeball it to see if I'm going with a straight line. I put just a dot, a teeny dot, on each of the four corners so that if I have to pull it off and rearrange it, it's not too bad. Okay, then I flip it over and see how well I did. So I'm off on this side, like it needs to go that way a little, but I'm kind of fine up and down. So again, because I have that batting under there, I'm going to be able to just kind of pull this gently to get it where I need it before I glue it in the back. That looks better. Yeah. So I'll pick an edge, doesn't really matter which. Then I'll put my line of glue down and fold it in. Check the front again, see if I like the straight edge. Do the other side. Okay. Then I'll do the top and bottom. Okay. Now you may want to put a little glue on the edges, but we're going to do that trick, so that will help hold them. So then I turn it over and it looks pretty good. Centered wise, it looks pretty good. My corners are really bumpy. So what I'm going to do is sew it up from the back, and that will tighten them right up. We're running out of battery, but I think I have time to sew one corner, and then I'll plug it in and sew the rest of the corners so I can finish showing you. So I take a quilting needle, so a sharp one. I like to grab a thicker thread. This is like a button thread. Grab a strip of that. I put my two loose ends together. I do a loop start, basically. So I put my two ends together, thread them through if they're behaving. Then on the back of one of my corners, right, so there's the before, you can tell they're not very tight. So I go up on one of the sides, kind of way up toward the top. Sometimes you have to kind of push it in a little bit. And I go through my fabric. Then I loop through to start it. And I'm just going to sew up to the other side. I'm kind of lacing them together, I guess, to pull them tight. I like to start from the top, and that way if there's any kind of bump when they come together, it's on the bottom in the spot that you're not going to see. So I just kind of go down like an inch. And then I'll kind of end it off. I just go back through the fabric a little bit and tie it off. Cut it off. We'll look at the difference. Now it looks much better, I think. Here's one of the ones that hasn't been sewed. There's the one that has. So like I said, I'm running out of batteries, so what I'm going to do is stop the video, plug the camera in. I'm going to sew up these three corners, and I'm also going to sew up all four corners on my backing fabric, and then I'll show you how I put them together. I'll be back. I'm back. We're all charged up. So while that was happening, like I said, I went ahead and sewed the corners on my stitched piece and my fabric piece. I'm using a dark floss because that's what I had. You can try and color match it if you want, but they don't show, and I'm going to put some trim around it, so I just use my dark. So you can see that that's going to fit right on there nice. We'll put some trim on. I also went ahead so I could show you two different kinds of trim. I got this one ready. This was the other piece I was planning on doing. I haven't sewn these corners up yet because I wanted to make sure I got this video done while it was still quiet. But I can do that after because they're on the outside. But I did sew my stitching edges, and then I went ahead and just glued that right on here, which I'll show you. I also made a piece of cording. I need a little... Wasn't quite down on that side. I made a piece of cording. I use Vanna's tutorial for cording, which I will put a link to below. It just got really dark in here, so I'm hoping it's just my view and that what you guys are seeing is okay. I'm gonna try and open, I'm gonna kick some stuff and open a window. So, we'll set that one aside. So for this one, I'm going to use a rickrack. Lady Dot Creates had some grab bags a little while ago, and I got one, and it had a bunch of different trims. So I've been working my way through those. I picked this one because I thought it looked like toasted marshmallows. I don't know what it's called because it was in the grab bag. So for this one, I'm going to do a cording, which I glue on after they're put together. The rickrack is a little different. If I were using a pom-pom, I would put it on after. The rickrack I glue to the actual stitched piece. So I have my rickrack. I'm gonna cut off this snaggly end, and I try and cut it like, this will be the first kind of wave that I use. And you can see, I'll just line it up on this side, it doesn't really matter. So I want that wave to kind of peek out right from the corner. And then you kind of have to measure like, all right, well, if it's at that corner, can I get a whole other wave? If I really pushed it, I could. So I'm gonna try and get that many waves. So I'll just pinch that with my finger so I know where to cut. And I try and cut at an angle so that I cut off the next wave. And now when I glue it, you won't see anything. And I'm going to do the same thing to this one. So there's my line. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on one edge and get that first wave tucked in there. Check it again to make sure I'm going to make it all the way to the other end, and I should be fine. So then I'll just put a little line right on the edge. I might go halfway. Get them on there. This is when I get the most glue on my fingers. And then go down the rest of the way. So there's one side. So then I'll do the other side across from it. Again, I'll see how many waves I can get. Pinch it off so that I can cut it. And then I'll need to cut this one kind of the other way. And then get that one on there. So again, just a little dab. Then I'll go halfway. Then the rest. So then it's on the other side. Now if I wanted to, I could stop here and just have it on the sides, but I am going to go all four. There's the top. One of my waves was kind of hidden, so I just kind of pulled it up a bit. If I needed to, which I may, you can just kind of pull it off and move it around. Get it where you like it. And then we'll do that last bit. There. So now I have my rickrack all along all the edges. So I pull out my fabric. This one was a little taller than wider, so I just want to make sure that I have it in the direction I want it. And what I do is I kind of eyeball it to where I think it's going to be good. Set it down. Make sure I have enough glue in my gun. Flip it up. And I'm going to be putting wads of glue on all four corners and like a little bit in the middle. And this stuff dries pretty quick, so that's why I like it. But you gotta move. And then again, eyeball it, push it down. Give it a little squeeze. One of my waves is still kind of, there we go. And there it is. So here's that block that I use. Whenever I can, I like to put my magnet on the finishing piece because then when I store them, they don't all stick together. So I have my magnet. I bought these off Amazon. They're 12 by 2, I believe. This is an older one, so it might be a little different size, but the last batch I bought was 12 millimeters by 2 millimeters. And then fender washers. Make sure they're magnetic, as I learned my mistake the last time. This batch is. My husband got them at Home Depot. So I just grab one of these. I like to just put it right on my magnet. Then put my glue around it. And set my piece on. And if it's not perfectly centered, that's no big deal because it's on a magnet and you can wiggle it around. So there we have it. So that one is good to go. The washer's on there. That one is done. The other one, like I said, I was planning on doing cording. So I made a piece of cording with Vonna's tutorial. It came out way too long, which is fine. So I like to start on the bottom. And what we're doing is just gluing this along the edge, and then I'll show you how to tuck the end in, which is a new trick I learned from one of Vonna's videos. So it's come in very handy. So I leave, like, first of all, I make sure that the area I'm putting it in isn't exactly tightly glued because I'm going to want to tuck it in there a little bit. And I'm going to leave like a ½ inch or so, maybe an inch, and just start gluing a little dab, a little line to get that started and hold it in place. So you can see there's my edge. Now I'm just going to lay a line of glue. Again, any glue works, whatever you're comfortable with. Just kind of set that on it. Doesn't take much. And do this all the way around. I got glue buildup over here. Sometimes on my edge I kind of just push to make sure that it doesn't sink in if it's not totally on there. Linen and even weave would be less thick, so they don't give you as much of a hard time. Picture this plus Aida is not as thick. This is a vintage country mocha, so it's a little on the thick side. Around the corner. I finish a lot of my flats this way. It's easy, they store well. You can change it up with different trims so they don't all look the same. You can make your cording match. I just like the look of it. So when I get to the end, and this is honestly, people have asked me to do some tutorials. I watch Vanna's tutorials. I believe this is what she calls her mounted flat. I don't know. She has a tutorial almost basically like this. So no disrespect, Vanna, because I learned from the best. I learned from her. But I've had some people ask me to do some tutorials. So I'm just showing you how I do it. And with the hot glue, because I know that Vanna uses the aliens. So I just cut one strand of a piece of embroidery floss, the same color, and I'm going to tie off this end, kind of a little, just a smidge past where they're going to cross. I'm going to tie a knot. So there's one. There's two. So then I can cut those bits off. And I cut kind of right up next to them. And then that's your end. So you flip up your first end, which has the nice closed loop. You're going to glue this end down and kind of tuck it in there a little bit. Okay. And then you take the other side and you kind of glue it right up too. I don't glue the knob kind of down, I glue it right up too. Okay. And then you've got this like doubled up bit. Take a flathead pin, a smallish one, like a small pin. Mine, I believe, are the stainless steel bridle and lace. Mine are bridle and lace pins. I got them at Joann's. And you tuck this right in your loop and just kind of pin it down in. And that will flatten out that bump and make it look, it's not going to be perfect, but it makes it look like it's all one piece. And other than that piece of fuzz I have in there, that one is done. So there's that one. This one I had on this stand, which I put 2 magnets on. When I first started them, I must have thought it was too magnet worthy. So I'll put 2 washers on there. Press that on. and then I can adjust it to where I want it. There you have it. That is how I do my flat finishes. I really like using these wood pieces that I can use over and over again. I've done all of the seasonal sayings that I have on these. I have a white one and a brown one. This piece, I'm planning on doing all of the trilogy lineups. I now have spring and summer. I can just pop them off when I want to store them, and I only have to store this bit, which is nice and flat, and it's good for the next time. I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Vonna, for always sharing your knowledge. I don't think any of us that do finishing would be anywhere near where we are at if it weren't for your videos and all of the other finishers that share their techniques, because then you can kind of tweak them to what works for you and make your pieces stand out the way you want them to. Thank you, guys.